This week, OpenAI and Google just made moves that might completely change how you use AI every single day, and honestly, it's getting harder to tell who's actually winning. Hey, I'm Mark, and if you've been paying attention to the AI space, you know these two companies are basically in an arms race right now. But here's the thing that most people get wrong. It's not actually about who has the fancier model anymore. It's about who's winning where it actually matters, and that's a way more interesting story than you might think. Let me back up for a second, though. If you're not super plugged into tech news, you might be wondering why we even care about ChatGPT versus Google AI. Like, aren't they both just chatbots? Well, yeah, kind of, but not really. These two companies are basically competing to own the future of how humans interact with information. That's a huge deal. Google owns search. OpenAI owns the conversation interface that took the world by storm. And this week, both of them just threw some serious punches. So let's break down what actually happened and why it matters to you. First, let's talk about what OpenAI did. They just released some pretty significant updates to ChatGPT that honestly flew under the radar for a lot of people. We're talking about improvements to reasoning, better accuracy on factual questions, and some pretty clever upgrades to how the model understands context. But here's what's really interesting. They're not just making the model smarter in abstract ways. They're specifically targeting the kinds of things that frustrated people about ChatGPT in the past. You know, like when it would confidently give you wrong information, or when it would get confused halfway through a long conversation. Yeah, they're working on that stuff. The reason this matters is because OpenAI knows they have a trust problem. ChatGPT has become this weird cultural phenomenon where everyone uses it, but nobody really trusts it completely. It's like that friend who's super fun at parties, but you wouldn't necessarily ask them for directions. OpenAI is trying to change that perception by actually making the model more reliable. And based on what I've seen in testing, they're making real progress. The hallucination rate is down, the consistency is better, and it's way less likely to confidently tell you something that's completely made up. Now, here's where Google comes in. Google just made their own announcement, and this is where things get spicy. They're integrating their Gemini AI directly into Google Search. Not as a separate feature, not as a beta experiment, but as a core part of how search works. Think about that for a second. Google Search is still the most used search engine in the world by a massive margin. Billions of people use it every single day. And Google is now saying, hey, we're going to answer your questions with AI. You don't have to leave Google to get an AI answer anymore. So why does this matter? Because it's actually a really smart move. See, OpenAI's big advantage was that ChatGPT was easy to use and it felt fresh and new. Google Search felt old and clunky by comparison. But Google just flipped the script. They're saying, you already come to us for answers, so now you're going to get AI answers without ever leaving. That's a huge advantage. It's like Google took their biggest strength, which is that they're already in your habit loop, and they made it smarter. But here's the nuance that a lot of people are missing. These two companies aren't actually competing in exactly the same way. ChatGPT is a conversation tool. You go there specifically to have a conversation with AI. Google Search is a discovery tool. You go there to find information. Those are different use cases. It's like comparing a coffee shop to a library. They're both places where you get information, but you use them differently. So who won this week? Honestly, it depends on what matters to you. If you care about having long-form conversations with AI, if you want to explore ideas and brainstorm and have back-and-forth discussions, ChatGPT is still your better choice. Their improvements this week made that experience better. But if you just want quick, reliable answers to questions, and you want them integrated into the search experience you already use, Google just gave you a really compelling reason to stay in their ecosystem. The bigger picture here is that both companies are making real improvements, and that's actually great for everyone. Competition drives innovation. A few months ago, everyone was saying ChatGPT was going to kill Google. Now people are saying Google is going to kill ChatGPT. But the truth is, they're probably going to coexist, and they're going to push each other to get better and better. There's another layer to this that I think is worth mentioning, though. Both of these companies are now in a race to make their AI tools more useful in practical, everyday situations. It's not enough to have a model that's good at abstract reasoning or that can pass tests. The real competition is about who can build the AI that people actually want to use, that solves real problems, that fits into how people actually live and work. OpenAI is focusing on making ChatGPT more reliable and more capable as a general-purpose thinking partner. Google is focusing on making AI search results that are actually better than traditional search results. Both approaches make sense. Both are valuable. And both are being executed pretty well right now. Here's what I think is really interesting, though. We're entering a phase where AI is becoming less about, wow, look what AI can do, and more about, AI is just a normal part of how I get things done. That's a maturation moment. It means the companies that win are going to be the ones who integrate AI into tools that people already use in ways that actually make those tools better. So what does this mean for you right now this week? Well, if you use ChatGPT, you should check out the updates. They're subtle but real, and you might notice the model feels a bit more solid. If you use Google Search, you're probably already starting to see Gemini integration showing up, and you might as well get comfortable with it because it's not going anywhere. But the bigger takeaway is this: the AI race isn't over. We're not at the finish line. We're actually in the middle of it, and things are moving really fast. Every week, one of these companies is announcing something new. Every week, the capabilities are getting better. And every week, the question of who's winning gets a little bit more complicated. The honest truth? We're all winning right now, because we live in a world where AI is getting better and more integrated into our daily lives. And that competition between OpenAI and Google is making sure that happens as fast as possible. Both companies are pushing each other, and we're all benefiting from it. If you found this breakdown helpful and you want to stay on top of what's actually happening in AI, instead of just the hype, hit that subscribe button. I break down this stuff every week, and I promise to keep it real with you. No corporate spin, no hype, just actual analysis of what's going on in the AI world. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.